Hey friends, I'm Josephine Millies. Welcome to episode 6 of the 9-patch Bestie Bag process diary.
I'm going to show you how to hand quilt. First, I'm going to say just as a blanket statement, there's no way to do this wrong. You need a needle, a thread, and the thing that you're quilting. And you need to sew in and out of the thing you're quilting, and that's it. That is how you hand quilt correctly. It's really easy to get locked in on if you're doing things perfectly. And there is a perfect way to do things. Like, don't get me wrong, there is books, there is a traditional, there is the perfect stitch length, there is the correct needle, there is the correct thread. But for me, the point is not to make it perfect. The point is to make something that was fun to make and that you like to look at. I have preferences. There is a certain needle that I really like. There is a certain thread that I really like. There's a thimble that I always use, but there are a million options. For me, using the correct tools is about using the tools that work the best for me, that make it the easiest on me to make the thing, right? So what I need to make this thing here, we have those lines, and then the other side too. So it's this big. And what I'm using is my favorite needles. My favorite needles are these needles. Those are the needles. They are Clover 2007. They are very difficult to find. I bought 10 years ago and realized that I like them a bunch. I have 5 left. Is there 5? 5 left, yes. This gadget is a thread holder. You can, what's it called? Quilt Dome by Clover. It's something that I use to keep everything in one spot. The thread that I use when you are quilting, this is my little hand quilting bag that I made. When you are quilting, you have a few options. There's this one, and this one, and this one, just off the top in my bag. We've got these 3. So thread is categorized by weight. It's the same as gauging. If you were gauging your ears 25 years ago, it works the exact same way. The smaller the number, the thicker the thread. The higher the number, the thinner the thread. This thread is 80 weight. This thread is 30 weight. And this thread is 12 weight. See how much larger that one is? I prefer, my hands are huge. I prefer thicker thread because I like to be able to see it. If you're someone that quilts in such a way that you want it to be sort of camouflage, you want the thinner thread. It will work. You may need more of it. I don't really use it in this way. I use it for my hexies. That's why it's in my bag. And if you have this thinner thread, then you need these thinner needles, which is a whole nother thing. Now, because I prefer to use 12 gauge, see the 12, or weight, as they call it here, I need these with larger. See it? It's a larger eye. I just like my big hands. So this and this. I have a smaller one, this one that I've already been using, but I assure you it's the exact same thing. So I'm going to use this one. We also have something called wax for your thread. You take your thread. When I pull my thread, I do this, and then I cut it at about my heart. You know, always need some scissors, obviously. And then it's easy to thread because it goes right through the eye. I'm gonna find my thimble though. I do have a favorite thimble. If it's in here, it is. This is a really expensive thimble that I bought at a quilt show. These are kind of old school metal thimbles. They are They have the little bumps on the top, and this one has sunflowers. It's slightly too big for my finger, so if I sew for a while, it'll start to get sweaty and it's gonna come off, so I put a little band-aid on it. However, there are many, many, many options for thimbles. This whole box is full of thimbles. I've spent some time trying to find the right ones. We have these old school ones that work just fine. My fingers are just too big and they don't hold on. These are stickers. These are rubber, and it was too big, so I made it a little bit smaller. These guys cover your entire finger like this. This is a sashiko. There's these that work pretty well that are just like leather. This one actually fits nice. These ones are my second favorite. This one's starting to come apart on the part that I push, so I don't use it as much anymore. These are fun. It's the same idea as that bigger one, but they're a lot cheaper. So just keep buying them. You will eventually find one that you like. I really like my metal guy right now. Sometimes my wrists will be sore and I have to switch to something else, and if I have to do that, I usually switch to my green guy. So I'm going to use the metal one to show you. I'm not going to use the wax. You can use the wax. What you do is you should do it before you thread it, but you simply put it on it and pull it so that you have some wax. It makes it a little bit flatter, it makes it a little bit smoother, it makes it a little bit stronger. I'm gonna put that away. I'm gonna put on my thimble and get started.
This way. We didn't talk about marking because I'm not gonna mark it. My natural hand movement is pretty steady, and I'm going to use the quilt itself as reference. I do not want this to be perfect. It's not what I want, but if you do want it to be perfect, you put a ruler on it, you grab one of these. We have a hair marker. A hair marker makes a line like that, so it's easy to see. That's a preferred for me because then I don't need to worry about ironing it off. One of those pens that I showed you in the last video is a Flex-On pen. That is an iron off. An air and water soluble ink pen. These are a very common thing that you can find really anywhere. It's made for these things, so you can use it to make markings and then wash it off. This is a soap thing. It makes marks on the side. See? And then when you wash it, it comes off. I don't trust it. And then we have good old-fashioned chalk. See? Like I said, all of these will work. I'm not going to use any of them. What I'm going to use is my eyeballs. My plan is to go in the middles. We're going to do this middle, and then we're going to go back this way. I want to see the thread here because I like the way that's going to look. I have basted this down this way, across the length of the front and the back. So I'm going to begin stitching this way. I'm going to start not outside because I don't want to cut the knot off. Let's do a knot, actually. This is a quilter's knot. See? I'm not starting out here because when I cut this on the line, I don't want to lose my knot. I'm starting on the inside. Let's start here. You can also just go in between, which doesn't sound like a bad idea. Let's just go in between. So my knot is between the front and the back, so you can't see it either way. The way that I sew is I use my thumb, see it's already got a dent, and I use my thimble. My my needle sits about here, and that's how I sew. I'm going to take the underneath, and I'm going to use my finger underneath right here. You see my nail, and I'm going to push in about 1/8 of an inch. And when I push through enough to feel it on my finger, I'm going to bend it to pop it out. About 1/8, touch my finger, pop it out. And then push it in, pop it out. My fingers get sweaty, though. So in just slightly, so you can feel the edge, not any further than that you can feel the tip. And then when I pull this up and push this out, it's just enough that I can see the tip. I'm going to push back in, feel the tip. I'll do that about 4 or 5 times before I pull it through. The width of the stitch, how far the stitches are apart, is something that I think of as your signature. This is what my hand just naturally does. After many hours of stitching, this is what feels comfortable. If it feels like it's too tough, then you need less stitches. One stitch, 2 stitch, 3 stitch. Feels a little, that third one feels a little rough, so I'm gonna push through. And the reason that it does is because there's 2 pieces of fabric here and there's 2 pieces here, or there's probably 4 here, depending on how I ironed it. The reason that people iron out is so that when they stitch through it, there's less to stitch through. And then I always sort of flatten it out so that I know that the stitches aren't getting bunchy. When you feel it on your finger in the back, you know that it's come through. And when you bend it like this, you know that it has sort of picked up to go back through again. My back is not as clean as the front. However, it looks pretty just fine to me. When you pick up the side, make sure it's taut. You can come in through this way and do it sort of at, I don't know, I guess this angle, or you can come from the side and do it at this angle. I do not use hoops. I have tried them and I don't like them. It's a perfectly valid way to stitch. I just don't like the way that they feel. They feel bulky and I can't get this good bunch up in my left hand that I need, so I don't use them. Now I'm at the end. We see the line. I don't want to end it here. I don't want the needle on this side. I want the needle on this side, because I don't want to cut it off, because I'm paranoid that if I cut it off and then I stitch it, the stitch isn't going to get in the exact right spot and it's going to come unraveled. So what I do is I'm going to stick my needle through. I'm going to flip it over. You can tie a knot. You can just straight up pick up the fabric right here and tie a knot. And that's perfectly acceptable to have that little knot. That's what it looks like if you just tie a knot at the end. Still go through so that when you clip off the tail, it is inside. The tail is living right over here and it's just gone. The other thing you can do is you can wrap it around a needle a couple times. Hold down those curves, pull it through so that you have a tiny little knot right next to where your needle came out, and you can come back through and pop it through. That's how you hide it. See that? You can clip it. Pull it a little bit taut so that when you clip it, it disappears back inside. We're gonna do another quilter's knot. And we're gonna start again. So now that I'm done with the quilting, I need to take out the basting. So what I do is I didn't make any knots at the ends, so I can just pull. So I'm gonna go to the edge where I started, and I'm going to just pull out the thread. Like that. I'm just gonna pull, see that? And if you do it right, the whole thing just beautifully, it just falls out. Now I've taken out the basting in the main bit, but I'm going to leave the basting around the edge, see it right there, because I'm going to take my machine and sew just inside of the line to stay stitch. If I don't do that, this could get floppy and it just doesn't hurt. It's just an extra step to make it a little bit more secure. So I'm gonna do that before I rip out the last basting. This is an extra step. This is not something that is absolutely necessary, but it is very helpful. Now this bag pattern has two options. There's lined and there's unlined, and I'm pretty sure, I'm like 80% sure, 75, 50, 60% sure that I'm going to do the unlined version, which is why I'm doing this way. I will be finishing these edges in a more correct way, which would be either with my serger if I decide to change the needle and it's been sitting there without with a broken needle for at least 6 months, but maybe I'll change the needle for this very special project. Or maybe I'll use my baby lock that has a zigzag and I'll just zigzag over it. I don't know, we'll see when we get there, which will be the easiest thing to do. See that stitch there? Right along that edge. So now this one's safe to cut out. Let's do the other one. I do want this right on the edge so that you won't see it later. I don't want some random thread poking out on the outside of my bag that I was so meticulous about sewing. So now I'm gonna cut this out. The front or the back of the bag. I have to make sure that I have the notches cut out because I will need those notches later to line them up. So I'm using this just to make absolutely sure I'm in the right spot. I'm cutting out just a little triangle so that I can match them with the other little triangles for the things. The seam allowance for this is 3/8 of an inch. So my cutting the 1/8 or the, almost 1/4 that I'm cutting isn't going to hurt anything.
You can cut through what you just sewed, that thread that you just sewed. It's fine. This one. Let's talk about lining. The benefit of lining is that you don't see any seams. You don't see anything that's unfinished. And as far as I understand, that's it. The downside of lining for me is that it's kind of bunchy and that we don't see the stitches anymore. Now, I don't like when I put my hands in my bag and I look for something and it, like, I grab the bag and it gets weird and like, that annoys me. Maybe that's really specific, but that annoys me. Okay, done. You might remember from episode 5, me showing you these beautiful scrubs that I bought at the thrift store. I was going to make a quilt out of them, but the color was just too good to pass up for this project. I'm using them to do the bottom panel, the strap, and the strap tabs. I have quilted all pieces, and now I'm cutting out those pattern pieces because you have to finish the piece of fabric however finished is for you. If it's just a piece of fabric, whatever that is, it has to be finished when you cut out those pattern pieces. Next, I'm tracing and then cutting out the strap tabs. The strap tabs are what actually hold on to the strap, and it gives it that nice crescent moon shape. I often forget, so I try really hard to remember to put the markings on the fabric that are on the paper. We have to remember the notches. The grain line is often really important. There's little dots sometimes for like where to put a pocket. There's lines that will help you see where the middle is. So if there is a mark on the pattern, put it on the fabric. We have the front and the back of the bag as it will be. Isn't it cute? Look how far we have come, you guys. Look how much work we've put into this. And I have my bottom panel here also stitched through. And that's hand quilting. What's interesting is this is the shortest episode so far, probably the shortest episode. And the process that I did, that I showed you, took the longest. So it's about 6.5 hours for all of the things that I hand stitched. Then the next video, episode 7, I'm showing you how to assemble the whole damn bag, start to finish, all the way through. It might actually be the last episode, so please subscribe, comment, interact in some way with these videos if you enjoy them. If you don't, that's okay too, obviously. But I would love to answer questions, and I would love if you would subscribe, and I would love to continue making videos that you want to watch. Thank you.